Welcome to a new PYTHA tutorial in which I would like to show you how to change the size and shape of parts. First of all, I will create a simple block with an edge length of 1000 millimeters, where we will try out the commands. In PYTHA, there are tools that affect the entire part and commands that only edit selected points. Edges or faces of parts. The PYTHA tools are organized in different menus, depending on which element they edit. There are two menus with part tools. One with point tools, one with edge tools, and one with face tools. Depending on which menu you call a tool from, you can either only edit points, edges, faces, or the entire part. First, I start the Move command in Part Tools 1 menu. The functionality of this command is described in detail in the separate Move tutorial. As you can see, the command edits the entire block. The whole part is moved to a new position. I now switch to the Face Tools menu via the icon bar. Here too, I find the Move command. In principle, the function is exactly the same as with the command in Part Tools 1 menu, but here we do not move the entire part, but only selected faces. As the adjacent faces that have not been selected are firmly connected to the selected ones, they automatically follow the movements of the selected face and thus deform the part. Next, I switch to the Edge Tools menu. Here too, I find the Move command, and this also works identically to the commands of the same name in Part Tools 1 menu and in the Face Tools menu. The only difference, this time only individual edges are moved, which I select as usual, either with a left click or a frame selection. As with moving faces, only the selected edges of the block are moved. The adjacent edges follow the movement and thus deform the part. By the way, if I select all the edges of a face, the result is the same as with Move faces. And if I select all edges of the part, the result is the same as with Move parts. However, the Move Points command, which you can find in the Points menu, is the most flexible one. As with the other three tools above, after I have called the function, the query field asks which elements are to be edited. I select this point with a left click and confirm the selection with the middle mouse button. As with the other Move commands, the next step is to specify the distance and direction of the move. At this point, I would like to refer you once again to the Move tutorial, which explains in detail how this is done using the gizmo, value entry, or the from point to point method. I pick the Z-axis of the gizmo and deform the block interactively. The flexibility of the point movement results from its selection options. If I select 2 points, it works like moving edges. If I select all corner points of a face, the editing corresponds to the Face Tools command. And if I select all the corner points of a part, it is like using the Part tool. Of course, the commands shown can also be applied to complex parts. For example, when I draw a sphere, I can use the Move Points command to easily turn it into a capsule. Tip: there are quick selection buttons for the most important tool commands at the top in the icon bar: Delete, Move, Copy, and rotate. The first icon of this group is a toggle switch that defines which element type the tools relate to. By default, the toggle switch is in part mode. You can see this from the fact that all 4 icons display a small block. I switch to Faces mode with a left click. The icons now show a rectangle, and I can edit faces. In this way, you can also switch to the Edges, Points, and Texts mode. The display of the icons changes in each case and shows the activated mode. At the moment, we have only looked at the deformations that are possible with the Move command on a single part. But what does it look like when several parts touch each other? To illustrate this with a simple example, I will first copy the block 3 times along the Z-axis. If I now activate the Move Points command and drop a frame selection, I select all points of the project that are within this frame. In this example, this means the points of both blocks and all points that are hidden in the depth. After confirming the selection with the middle mouse button, I use the gizmo again for an interactive movement. As I have selected the corner points of both blocks, both are deformed at the same time. Of course, this also works if I select even more points. In this mode, I have selected the upper points of the lower block and the lower points of the upper block. I have automatically included all the corner points of the middle block in the selection. The upper and lower blocks are deformed accordingly, while the middle block is simply moved as a whole. Also consider such a frame selection. Selects all 4 corner points at this position, also those that lie in the depth, and accordingly allows such a deformation. Size changes of this kind are very often required in everyday life and can be carried out quickly and precisely with the tools shown. However, it becomes a little more complicated when parts are touching and we only want to work on one of them. For example, if I want to create a gap between 2 blocks, I can only move the corner points of one block. Theoretically, this is possible if I only select the corner points with a left click and not with a frame selection. This is because the left click always selects only one corner point. Unfortunately, I cannot specifically decide from which of the 2 blocks I select the corner point. Therefore, PYTHA provides another tool for such tasks that is better suited. The command is called Extend and can be found in the Part Tools 1 menu. In principle, the Extend command is identical to Move Points. However, here the point selection is restricted by an additional part selection. I will show you what I mean. As soon as I activate Extend, the query box asks which parts I want to edit. I select these as usual and confirm the selection with the middle mouse button. In my example, I select only this one block. The query box displays Extend in Area. The selection of corner points is now done by drawing a selection frame. However, unlike Move Points, this time not all the corner points within the selection frame are edited, but only the points that are inside the selection frame and also belong to the previously selected part. This way, I know for sure that in the next step, I will be editing the height of the upper block. You can, by the way, draw as many selection frames as you like. In other words, you can mark as many areas as needed. Only when you press the middle mouse button to confirm will you proceed to the next step. In this step, you need to define the distance and direction of the movement as usual. And this is done, as with all other move commands, either using the gizmo by entering values or with the point-to-point method. At this point, I would also like to refer to the move tutorial once again. For a better understanding of the function, I will repeat the steps. But this time, I will only select the corner points of this edge. The deformation that is possible through this looks like this. And of course, you can also edit multiple parts simultaneously when using the extend command. To conclude, let's look at a real-life example. I have loaded the window front of a room. A typical use case would be that the size of the window niche has changed, and we need to adjust our model accordingly. I use the Move Points command and select all the corner points on the right side. After confirming the selection, I move it 150 millimeters to the right. I repeat the process on the left side. These changes were easy to implement using the Move Points command. However, if I want to edit the window niche independently of the cabinet, a suitable point selection becomes complicated, because often you accidentally select corner points that should not be moved, leading to unwanted changes in the 3D model. Therefore, in such cases, the extend command is used. For the part selection, I only select the window and the wall. And for the point selection, I select all the corner points on the right side. Now I can edit the niche independently of the cabinets. I repeat this once again for the left side. First, the part selection. Confirm with the middle mouse button. Then the frame selection, which is also confirmed with the middle mouse button. And I specify the displacement as 150 millimeters. Now I would like to shrink the middle cabinet corpus to create niches. This is also a typical use case for the Extend tool. In the first step, I select the entire cabinet corpus using a frame selection. To do this, I deactivate the solid mode. This ensures that I do not accidentally select the side of the neighbouring cabinet. My area selection marks all the corner points on the left side. I enter 50. Enter. And I repeat the steps on the right side. -50. Enter. By the way, everything I have explained to you in this tutorial works the same way for individual faces or edges that do not belong to a 3D part. I hope I could give you a first small insight into the deformation of parts, and I am very excited to see what you will create with PYTHA.